you guys here. Really great to have this discussions. We'll probably try to continue having this type of discussions every 1 or 2 weeks, because if they become regular and we develop this kind of conversation inside the community, I'm sure we'll have a lot of benefits in the longer term.
I feel today's spread thread day is, I'm not sure.
Pardon me?
I muted him. Sorry, Blake. I muted you. Go on, Benny.
Okay, so we'll probably do the following. First, we'll discuss a bit the rationale of where we are and what we're trying to achieve together. Second, we'll dive a bit in the new suggestions and proposal of how things can be further improved. And then third, we'll discuss some more questions with you guys and so forth. So I would say that the most important element about the Elrond network is that we're trying to build these two elements. First, the backbone for a high bandwidth, low latency, transparent architecture that enables a different kind of economy. And then second, that we are trying to extend this new opportunity to ideally anyone, anywhere, gradually starting with a few hundreds of thousands of users that we already have, and gradually making this available in more countries as we grow. The reason for this is that we believe this will be a tremendous opportunity, both in terms of new services that will emerge and we'll be able to build together, and economic opportunities that will align incentives in new ways that the old economy cannot do. And this leads us to the current point of where we are. Of course, you remember these conversations that we had at the beginning, where a node had a cost of approximately $500, and a lot of time has passed since then, and many conversations are lost in the process. But I'm reminding everyone of this, because from that point until the point where a node costs $200,000, $300,000, $500,000, there's a long way that we've gone through. And you remember that the initial discussions were so designed to align incentives. 1 second.
Yeah. Silvio, I'm muting you. Sorry. Please go on.
So designed to make sure that the goals of the network are aligned with what everyone as a staking validator or as a staking person really wants and needs and is looking for. So the one thing that aligned everything has always been growth. If there is growth, almost every other problem becomes just a temporary problem that will be solved in the near future. If there is no growth, then all the calculations are basically useless, because users, instead of focusing on growth or validators or anyone who is participating in any kind of infrastructure game or a different game, will end up fighting themselves instead of fighting for growth. And I want to make this very, very clear and underscore how important this is, because this applies to the current economy as well. The problem with economies in most of the countries, and with the problem with corporations, and the problem with any kind of institutions that grow to a point where they cannot sustain further growth, is that since people understand they cannot grow, they will start fighting themselves. But although people start fighting themselves, it's very important to understand that the problems that seem to be the root cause of the fights are not the real problems. So for instance, we've seen that during the last few days, like people have been coming up with different or partial suggestions to how things can be improved, but they were not in the right kind of direction. They were in the direction of trying to fight a bit the others, trying to constrain the others, and taking something from the others instead of focusing on how we can enable further growth. And this brings us to the point of what we will try to always focus on is that if you look at even a normal country economy or a corporation economy, a market valuation or a startup, and assume two scenarios. One where the country has a very bright future or the corporation has a very bright future with a lot of growth, or the startup has a very bright future for a lot of growth. All incentives, all interests are aligned to put in a lot of work to get things done because there's growth. There's growth for everyone. Both super large players, both medium players and small players, everyone will have opportunities. When there's no future of growth, the country becomes a politics game, like a Game of Thrones where I kill you a bit, you kill the other a bit, and everyone is just fighting among themselves. And I'm saying all this because this is always a recurring discussion in both in the crypto space and outside. And it's very important to understand that what seems to be the problem is not the actual problem. The problem is always the challenge, not the problem, is always how can you bring more growth? How can you make sure that there is a larger opportunity out there? Because if the opportunity is larger, the pie grows and it grows for everyone. And this is why we are here. The discussion is not how we cut someone out, how we, I'm not sure, basically penalize the one who has initiative, has put in effort and so forth, but rather how does this opportunity become larger for all of us? Now, having this said, we will always try to come with further solutions that give us the possibility for further growth. Of course, more growth will lead into a much valuable network. Specifically, we're thinking about if the Elrond as a e-gold as a currency will be used in more settings, will be staked a lot, will be then staked in the Mire exchange and the lending platforms and so forth. This will in turn cause a kind of supply shock, which will be reflected in economics and price, which in turn will cause a demand shock. When people understand that this is a kind of normal cycle that is built in the network, then they understand that what's at stake now is how can we make sure that these incentives remain aligned, that we have different products that will bring even more demand, and that a lot of the supply is either locked to create the security of the network, locked in staking, and locked in other products that are all beneficial to the ecosystem. This, of course, brings us to the next stage of the Elrond network, where this ecosystem can become larger than some countries in market value and so forth. And this in turn will align the staking providers, will align the businesses and so forth. And I'm explicitly outlining this because we usually assume that everyone understands this, but it's not the case. So if there's no growth scenario, people end up doing something else. It's not exciting, it's not interesting. If there's a growth scenario, then the incentives, interests are very different. Now, coming back to our staking discussion, we are at the point where a lot of the supply is already staked. the demand is much higher than we initially anticipated. And this is the best news possible. This is not a bad situation. In fact, it's the best situation possible because this feeds the cycle that I was just discussing about. The question is then, how can we enable a much more fluid and streamlined ecosystem in a way that new users can stake, validators can join and can offer services, and at the end of the day, the network has a much larger stake locked, has a much larger security, can have this kind of virtuous dynamics, virtuous loops reflected in the ecosystem, in the economics element, and so forth. So the best ways that we believe align with these incentives are specifically 3 elements, and I'll just outline them, and then maybe I'll let Adrian briefly and Lucian touch a bit on the details and the time frames. But the good news is that we can always find solutions, and there's tremendous growth ahead of us, a lot of products, a lot of discussions. And then the most important part is for us to find ways to enable more people to stake, more validators to have a say and be able to offer their services, and more stake to be locked in the network. So the 3 solutions look like this. First of all, there will be an improved version of incentives with respect to base stake and top-up stake. So this means that whereas at this point we had something like, let me check, something like 21% APR for base stake and around 9% allocated for top-up, the new model will be with something like 20% for base stake and around 14% for top-up. This essentially means that the incentives will be much more geared toward collaboration, toward enabling more stake as top-up, because the penalty is not very large as it is at this point. And this will then create a lot of space for people to be able to offer services, as I said, make the top-up larger, and decrease the gap between the incentives for the base stake and the top-up, and have this done in a much more streamlined way. The second element, and there are 3 elements here, I'm outlining all of them, and then I'll let the guys, Lucian and Adrian, maybe touch a bit on each of those, and then if there are further clarification, we can also clarify those. The second element that we will pair this with is enabling every individual validator to opt to have the option to become a staking pool or staking provider. And this again means that users can receive top up themselves, can become staking providers, can become staking pools with a really well-designed option. And there's a further discussion that will follow up on this. And the third element that again complements all of this is, during the next period, at least, we will enable a kind of merge option for different staking pools or different validators to merge into one staking pool. So if, for instance, you have several staking pools and you want them, let's say you have several validators and you want to become a staking pool, you can become a staking pool and merge your different validators, and then have one staking pool that you can then manage and so forth, and align things in a way that is much more simpler on the one hand, and then enables this more fluid approach to people that join the network, people that manage the validators, and the future that's coming. At the end of the day, we want to enable this streamlined approach because it will enable the market to recalibrate a bit. So the demand to be matched with supply, and then a lot more discussion to be had around this subject. Adrian, if you want to add a bit on any of the points, or Lucian, if you guys want to add a bit, this is the general idea, and then maybe we can follow up with some points.
Yeah, maybe just a few points on the first thing you mentioned with the recalibration of the rewards or the APRs for top-up stake and base stake. Yeah, the returns were, as we've noticed, were too far apart. So we decided that it's better for the network if the penalty is not that much for the top-up stake, but it is still much more lucrative, for example, in terms of APR to have a base stake. So the base stake still has a pretty good APR, while also the top-up stake now has a decent APR. For the changes you mentioned, so it's about the first option is to enable one direct. So if you've run nodes that you've directly staked previously, then this validator, which runs several nodes, can become fully a staking pool. So all the funds can become can go under a staking pool, and you can manage all your nodes through the staking pool, and you can accept delegations. I remember someone complaining in one of our last talks, last town hall discussions with the validators. Someone mentioned that they have only one validator, and they were concerned about staking phase 4 if the node price or the staking per seat will increase, they will be left out. Now you could, for example, convert to a staking pool and accept some delegations. So if staking phase 4 comes and there's a larger price for node decided, then you're still in, basically. And also the other option, since some people have done staking from different wallets, and if they want to have a staking pool and merge all those nodes into the same staking pool, now this is possible. Of course, it is also possible that an existing staking pool merges with validator, even if these two are not the same, but the same owner for both, but still there needs to be an agreement between them, because both need to do something. So I will maybe, if the details are needed, I can also answer, or someone else can answer.
Lucian, do you want to add something?
No, I think that covered pretty much all the features. There are a few specific implementation details, but I think that will be cleared with hands-on testing pretty soon on testnet.
Then I will add one element as an idea. So this discussion will be out. We'll touch on the points. You can come with some questions, come with some feedback, and so forth. So we're super happy to have the discussion around this. We're also thinking about the timeframes, and there are two timeframes that we have in mind. One is assuming that things are ready. We're already preparing some of the features that we've mentioned. So one optimistic scenario would be that sometime by the end of this month, we have things and there's a discussion around it and so forth. And then another scenario is let's say something intervenes and there's more discussion to this and so forth, there's a kind of mid-June time frame. But in any case, things are rather close. As I said before, it's a very, very significant difference of thinking about the zero-sum game, where all you have is just what you see, and the idea is how can you fight the other ones to take a bit more, or a non-zero-sum game, where you can, for instance, and I'll try to push both internally and externally for some discussions regarding non-zero-sum or positive sum games that validators can come for their and create for their communities with either new tokens, new incentives, new DAO features that are super smart, super nice, and add value in a way that nobody loses. It just creates more value for the user of that particular validator or for the ecosystem. So we will probably also focus on this, because then a lot of productive discussions will arise from this type of discussion as well. As Adrian mentioned, we can also dive into some of the specifics, but at least I think you have both the reasoning and why we believe it's super important to go in this type of direction and not start a witch hunt. You'll see in different parts of the world that essentially when people cannot bring more growth, they degenerate in this type of witch hunt. Who should we catch? Why do they have this much? What's happening there? And so forth. This is both funny and sad. Funny because it's very symptomatic of people not understanding the real problem and so forth. And sad because it kills the golden egg. Like you know the story of the goose that laid the golden egg, and then the crazy guy who wanted all the golden eggs all at once and killed the goose to get all of them out, and then lost both the goose and any future egg. So all we want to do is make sure that the goose is there, that we get more golden eggs, that we increase things, improve things, and then also dive into the specifics. So with this in mind, maybe Sever, if you want to start taking some questions, and yeah, let's dive into this a bit and see how we can address them.
Okay, so thank you, Benjamin. Awesome presentation. So I'm hyped even more than before, even though I kind of knew what was going to be said here. I think this is exciting because I'm a validator myself. So I look forward to opening up my own nodes for the community. I think this is great. Out of respect for the large number of people involved here, we will do like last time and take questions in written. So I will just take what's been written here already and just please drop them in the chat. So Marius asks about the math behind the 20% and 14%. Perhaps it's not, I think the time is too short to just go into these details. Maybe Adi?
Yeah, just a brief hint. The proportions here are different. So the base stake for the eligible nodes is much larger than the top-up stake for the eligible nodes. So this is why a small percentage out of the base stake can have a larger improvement on the APR for the top-up.
Awesome. Good. Then Ragnar asks when we expect these changes to go live. I think Benjamin already touched on that. It's tentatively mid of June, perhaps even earlier. Now, all the private nodes. So this question comes.
Just adding this. So tentatively, let's say ideal scenario by end of this month, and then almost ideal scenario mid June. We'll update on this as we make progress, but we're already testing and so forth. So progress is already in the works.
Okay. Then the next question comes again from Marius, who is asking about how is there a link between the identity and the staking pool? Like, can private nodes have the same identity but be part of a different staking pool or so on? Is there a link here?
So identity, I think in this case is referred to a wallet. So I assume if so, then the first option stands for merging from all the nodes staked from the same wallet as the delegation contract, from point 1 to be inside the same wallet or the same owner. And the point 3 of the proposal basically allows two different identities, in this case, two different wallets to merge based on a whitelisting from A to wallet or to delegation manager from the wallet created by wallet B.
Thank you, Lucian. I think the next question from Lucian is more or less in the same area. Like, can private nodes be added to a staking agency even if the wallets are different?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Awesome.
if the staking pool previously whitelisted the owner of the stake nodes.
And what I want to add is that all nodes will be added.
Yeah.
So there are no partial movement of the nodes from one validator to the delegation smart contract. All nodes will be moved.
From the same owner, yes.
From the same node.
And one other point, sorry, did you want?
I wanted to say, and you also have to trust the people that you are getting the nodes from, because he's going to still have the BLS key.
Yeah, here there's actually there are two scenarios. One, you also get the BLS keys from the validator. If you were talking about a staking pool that is owned by someone else than the validator who wants to merge, then it might be two scenarios. One, the BLS keys for the nodes are given to the staking pool, so the staking pool can also manage the nodes. But in this case, you need to trust also the validator that he will not run separate instances of the same nodes and possibly do double signing. Or second case is that the validator continues to operate his own BLS keys, but anyway the rewards are going to the staking pool, and in the staking pool the validator can claim his rewards according to his contribution, to his delegated amount. So in this case it needs to be settled between the two parties. The way to go forward. In case the owner is the same for the directly staked validators and the staking pool, then it's simple because it's the same entity.
Awesome.
Exactly. And then what I was referring in regard to the implementation, that a validator cannot, or if wallet A has 5 nodes or 4 nodes directly staked and one of them is jailed, then the merge process will fail at the request time, at the execution time. So you can only merge as long none of your validators are in jail.
I think we'd have bigger problems than just merging the nodes to some pool if our validators were jailed. Let's move on to Stewie's question, who asked, what should we do? Can we just become a staking provider by using the wallet? And if so, will our new staking pool be available in MyR and in the web wallet?
So I'll touch a bit on a few features, just a second. I was discussing with the web team, and we will implement most of the features implemented in the delegation manager, especially the features that are designed for adjusting and managing the delegation contract for the owner. Those options should be deployed inside the web wallet, the official Elrond web wallet. However, the issuing transactions will still remain to be done manually, because it should be at least a very, very small difference in between professional or professional parties or people that really have also the technical knowledge to take delegation from outside the community and take the full responsibility for that. So at least how to send and issue a transaction with the documentation up front should be very straightforward. But all the other parts, when it comes to managing the contract, the delegation contract, adding nodes, removing nodes, changing service fee, that should be available inside the Elrond wallet for all the delegation providers as well. Then moving forward to the same topic, what does a staking provider require in order to get listed and to be visible? So first of all the contracts are visible in all the tools. That's the purpose of an open economy. And then secondary, we always encourage people to have a good branding, have a good vision out there to communicate all those kind of stuff as clear as possible and as loud as possible. Most of the time would help, just to make sure that the right message is being sent to the community all around. The better we look as a community, the more valuable it is. So if you want to build a community around you, maybe I let also the first or the bigger ones to have a point here. There's also community support needed, so you will need a team inside your company or around you to manage the community, the questions coming out from people that, hey, I have delegated to you, I have delegated to this company, what is happening, why is not working, and so forth. Those kind of stuff should still, again, be managed by your teams, and make sure that you have a clear communication channel to your delegators.
One point I think that it was not clear is that this is only one way change. You cannot go back from after you merged with the staking pool or after you converted to a staking pool. You cannot go back to being directly staked without losing your seats. So right now the nodes are not unstaked. It's just a migration from being a validator or having the nodes directly staked to having them staked through the staking pool. But you do the seats are still kept. If you want to go back, you would have to unstake your nodes and restake and get in the queue. And I saw another question before, if you can unstake, if you have a single node with 2,500 e-gold, and if you need to unstake 1,250. No, 1,250 will be considered the initial contribution for the staking pool, and the other will be delegation from the same wallet, so it will support the same amount of nodes.
Awesome. The next question comes from Axel, who's asking about what do we think, what kind of outcome will these measures produce? Will the number of nodes decrease below 3,200 so that the queue will become irrelevant?
I think that's one of the goals. So on the very short term, that should align the interest of the delegators and the staking providers, and that should again encourage the ones, especially the ones that have taken and done amazing efforts with us, to accept the delegation on their nodes, even though it was maybe against of their initial community decision. And we do appreciate that a lot, especially the ones that have taken that decision and have let people inside. Basically that should again eliminate the pressure and realign a bit the interests of the entire community around the active validator slot. And on the longer term, I would what I want to mention is that the Elrond architecture is not at the final point and we're far away, not final, with the entire concept and how far the entire Elrond architecture is going and plan to go. And also the number of 3,200 nodes is just a temporary number onto our road. If we consider to add more shards, if we consider to extend the network in the upcoming months in any way, that would increase again the number of active validators, and as already mentioned, that's only a temporary step towards decentralization, fully decentralization, and even greater participation from around the globe for all kinds of individuals and staking providers.
Awesome. The next question is again from Stewie, who asks, what do individual validators who become staking providers have to do in order to distribute rewards to delegators? Like, do we establish the APR, or what happens there?
So I'll take the simple step what Adrian mentioned before. Basically, you have a node, you need to learn or maybe play an exercise on testnet how the entire process looks like. But basically, you have your node staked and active. You can issue a transaction that will transform your validator, directly stake validator node into a delegate, will basically create a delegation smart contract, and will add and migrate that stake node first of all inside the delegation smart contract without losing any spot. That would happen I think at epoch change or even before. Maybe Adrian can touch on, or Robert can touch on that part, when exactly will happen that. But basically, you're not losing any spot, and the node will get merged into the delegation contract, and that's the first step. By doing so, you basically exist already, and you have your delegation contract, and you can claim your own rewards. The next step would be to go and maybe set some service fees, set up your branding around your smart contract, build an identity around your company or your validator node, where you're explaining a bit who you are, what you're doing, what's your setup, what's your mission, what do you want to build, or what's your purpose exactly, and why are you offering this kind of services compared to all other providers. This is just a very short-term explanation what can be done and what should be done.
So in terms of when you change and how the rewards are distributed, like at the moment when you make the transaction and you decide that, yes, I want to become a new delegation service, all your validator data is migrated into a delegation contract. And from that moment onwards, all the rewards will go into that delegation contract. Thus, you as the owner have to claim rewards from there. You can, and from that moment, you have all your stake and all your nodes in the delegation contract, and you can manage to open up for more people, to set out a delegation, to invite more people in, to set a service fee, and everybody's, after that, you are just working like a delegation contract.
Yep. So after that, if people start adding their delegation to you, basically you will need them to have your website and so forth, and you can create your Keybase account, brand, put the configuration with the Keybase, connect your node, your delegation pool with the Keybase, with the same Keybase identity. Then you will be visible and noticeable inside Explorer and Maiar and Web Wallet. And then by doing so, you're already, so to say, in the game. Yep.
Awesome. Braden then asks, what will happen to people still involved in legacy delegation?
So
nothing. They do not change at all.
That would be a long-term.
This function cannot be called by someone who is already. It cannot be called by smart contracts. So we will not change anything.
So well, I think the question would be, when would the delegation, that part of delegation will start migrating? I think basically the sooner I would say the sooner we have the features that we need in the very short time in place inside the protocol, and we can switch the delivery time a bit to a more stable one, then I think we will do a transition from the community delegation nodes. And there are also several features that that Adrian was mentioning before in all the previous calls, like slashing, that will need to come before dissolving entirely the community delegation pool. However, the community delegation pool might be distributed in other ways, and that will be explained in further calls. I think that would be, in order to stay on time and take as many questions as possible, let's try to keep as focused as possible on these few questions, answer this, and then once we're done with this, we deploy this, we go and iterate on the next move. But there's a plan for that as well. It's ongoing, and we are basically pushing on all the features needed to fully decentralize the network in the shortest time possible. Also maintaining the same security levels in place for the entire ecosystem.
While also solving climate change, I'm sure. So the next question comes from Ben, who is asking whether option 3, like merging 2 different identities, will also be available on the longer term, or is it just a short-term option?
I think first of all we'll consider this for a short-term version. I don't think that should be a long-term. We're still open for discussion for pro and cons. The only concern I have on the longer-term vision is that somebody could still buy the seeds inside a shard, or buy the seeds from a node with other purposes than creating a delegation pool or creating a grid for the entire network.
Awesome. So Tortuga is asking next about the private nodes that choose to become staking pool. Will they be listed in the web wallet and MyR beside the rest of the validators?
Yes, that's every delegation contract will get listed by default as soon as they have active delegation or active stake in it. But of course, it's the branding is, and the identity around the entire validator is very, very welcome. The better, the greater we look, the better the product is valued, and the entire economy as well.
Awesome. Then the next question comes from Mir, who asks if it's possible to attach private nodes to a newly deployed staking pool smart contract.
Yeah. Let's define what is, if I don't think there's any specific difference to a newly and old deployed contract. So as long as the contract has at least one, so if the contract has been deployed with 1,250, assuming that's the case, and it has so far 0 or maybe nodes only in the validator queue, then that's a normal delegation contract. It's just in a different position compared to all other ones, and then the migration can happen on the same principle.
Okay.
But with the whitelist, so that's, sorry again to interrupt, that's the option number 3. So that goes under the option number 3 mentioned before. So that would be possible as well.
Awesome. The next question is from Konstantin, but Konstantin, I will kindly ask that you address this question to me, maybe even directly in Romanian. I don't think I get it. So I'll just skip, and please write me on Telegram. So the next question comes again from Ben, who is asking about the adjustment of APR for base stake and top up. Will it be enough, do you think, to clean up the validator queue?
I think that the cleanup validator queue takes a bit longer process and push from everyone around us. So it's a joint effort, because regardless how good the numbers will be at the end, there will be still people that don't follow any of our communication channels. And even if they do, they will decide that their grid is higher than anything else. So I think if the numbers are good enough, and we can join the efforts for especially having new companies, small providers joining and growing, the points where with merging nodes or transitioning directly stake nodes, and merging nodes, directly stake nodes to a new provider or to an existing provider, that's already a very strong incentive for the already inside validators to support the ecosystem and grow their pools and grow the ecosystem and so forth. So I hope with this move that would encourage also the existing ones to maybe use their already existing resources and free up the opportunity, especially when there's a clear message coming from someone that is willing to and able to add value to the ecosystem in the shortest time. So if there's no plan, then that's a different discussion. But as long as we have companies that are coming up with hundreds of thousands of users that can, in the next days, assuming, or even only a matter of weeks, to get exposure for the entire ecosystem through their entire user base, then that's a pity to miss that just because of our own concerns. Yeah, so that's, I think the upside would be in that case even higher than anything what we as a provider, as providers for the Elrond ecosystem have been delivering for the upcoming, or for the past months and the upcoming months. And now that's a very where I'm moving the direction to, and I would really love to hear more about, now that everyone has taken care of their own companies and everything is in place with the communities and so forth, and that's a continuous discussion. I would be curious to hear, where are we in terms of building stuff, starting delivering what was the initial discussion, and what have been the last 4 weeks for you guys? I'm very curious to move that discussion, maybe have a follow-up and see where are we and where are we going to, especially from, this is a discussion especially for the existing staking providers.
Looking forward to grill them with questions of our own. The next question comes from someone on their iPhone who's asking us what's our primary focus at the moment, the number one priority. So with respect for the ongoing conversation, I would kindly ask to ask a more specific validator question. Let's just skip for now. Drew joined late. Yes, Drew, we're recording. We'll post that up. Awesome job, Ben, summarizing. Then Eddie is asking about what exactly is changing in the formula, the top-up gradient point and the top-up factor, or what else is tweaked in the formula?
No, these are the exact parameters that are being changed. Also, adding some backwards compatibility for the change. So these are the changes, and you need to take into consideration that what we have on the protocol is how it actually behaves. And what we have in the APIs or in MyArt, that's an approximation, because we are using we're using the amounts staked on the network and the top up of the network and so on to estimate or to approximate the APRs. While in the protocol you have exact numbers based on the exact amounts on the eligible nodes in that specific epoch. So this. There are some differences, and there was also some difference in the way the APR was computed on the APIs, which introduced some difference between what is actually earned in the network. So the approximation was not very good, and you will see also some change in the approximations of the APR, which will bring closer to the real APR that you see in the network, the numbers displayed. So this will come on the API, on the APIs at the same time with the change. So there is not much friction, and many questions from delegators who see that the APRs have been changed without seeing movement in the network.
Awesome. The next question comes from Axel, who's asking about staking providers and whether or not there will be displayed in the MyArt wallet. I think this was asked before, but he has a nice twist. Is there an option for friends and families pools? Like, can we whitelist who gets to delegate to our pools?
No, we shouldn't. We wouldn't like to do that, as this can open can make people to close everything and you will not open up for people. What can you do, however, as we saw that there are a few friends and families pools, is that you set a high fee, then you accept your families, and after that you set the fees, you close the total delegation cap.
There's
Something
a
like
funny
that.
example here, maybe, and I won't tell you who it was. I'm just telling you the code name. One of the guys basically put in, maybe, I'm not sure, 100% fees and so forth, and then specifically with this idea, so that if people see this, they basically react to it and say, no, I don't want to go into this pool, and just leave it open for friends and family. And he was surprised that even with 100% fees and whatever, people still joined. So it was really interesting. It was coming from Yeleman in the community, and it's either surprising because people don't really read anything and just click next and so forth, which might be the case, or surprising that people want to stake even without rewards. I'm not sure what the conclusion should be there, but it was funny nonetheless, because yeah, specifically it was meant to leave the room open for friends and family, and then it ended up attracting some other people as well. Sever?
Yeah, awesome. I think in the age of Shiba Inu, we know exactly what kind of decisions people make in the background when putting their money. Nothing. Anyway, so Ben also enjoyed Eddie's question about the formula. Awesome. I hope the explanation was from Adi was good, Ben. Then Tudor is asking, like, what if I choose not to transfer my validators into staking pool? Is there what happens?
No,
it happens nothing.
Stake nodes.
You go forward as you were for that, as you are right now. So no changes.
Yeah, this is just an option. It's nothing mandatory. If you want this option, you can go for it.
You will remain the only solo validator on the network, but if that's okay for you, no, joking.
Jose did some quick math here. Jose, do you maybe want to briefly share this? I think it's interesting.
Yes, thank you, sir. I only wanted to point, because I think for the good of the decentralization of the network, and as well to remove some top up from pools that has a lot of pressure, maybe, and we can balance that. A single node running, actually, if he becomes a staking provider and accept 25,000 top up ego with 10% fees, it's mostly doubling their income, and they are giving 25,000 ego from the community delegated. It's a lot of ego just with 50 nodes like this. It's awesome. I mean, we will have a lot of room there. So it deserves to learn. I suggest people to learn about the process, because it's really interesting opportunity there.
Awesome.
I would
awesome
also I would also add one thing. So again, we'll afterwards share some Excel, probably either today or tomorrow. Try to show some Excel of how things would look at current stages at 12 million, let's say, e-gold staked, 14 million, 15 million, just for you to get an idea, because the idea is not to solve only the current challenge and so forth, but by creating this streamlined approach, you will see that things still make sense, even at 13 million, at 14 million, at 15 million e-gold staked. And I mean, when you have 15 million e-gold stake out of 17 million, then it in any case becomes quite interesting to see the effects of that, not even going toward the direction of what the Maiar exchange will further do to amplify the effects even more. So yeah, we'll follow up with some notes on this, but the solution should be quite effective in removing the discussion and the challenges for now and concentrating them on the next steps.
Awesome. The next question comes from Kevin, who runs Stake for All, one of the staking pools with no active nodes, and obviously he's dealing daily with his community, and they're migrating away from his pool. So what is some advice for an operator in this position, and what can he tell delegators? Kevin, just to add some context here, because I think it's interesting also to tie it with what Jose mentioned. I think you also run individual validators, correct? Perhaps one idea would be to merge. Okay, no. Then anyway, so if someone wants to take the question.
Yeah, it might also be possible that you team up with one individual running one or several nodes and just merge your pool with his nodes and then go forward as a staking provider. If there are if nodes from those 3,200 are not let's say if new seats are not emptied from those 3,200.
Okay, awesome. So Kevin, I think it's not an easy situation where you're in. I think you also noticed the conversations that we've been having in the Validators Council channel, and we're trying to find options. I think staking 3.5 will align incentives in a way that a lot of the operators will move away from base stake, like too much base stake probably makes no sense. And for decentralization, adding more top up will be the way to go, which then in turn will create some more room for guys like you to join. And I think Ovidiu from StakeCon comes with a similar question, like what are the actions for decentralization for small new providers? Like the modified APR is only applicable if your staking pool already has active nodes. So I think Ovidiu, this the same what I mentioned before will apply also in your case and everyone else's case, the staking providers with no active nodes. This is one of the reasons why we pushed forward for this change to a bit align incentives so that everyone can a bit more consolidate, perhaps take more stake on less nodes. So then there's additional room for more nodes to join. Maybe if someone else wants to add something.
I have a question. I missed the beginning of the whole conversation. I was in on the conversation maybe like 20, 30 minutes when you guys already had conversation. So you guys are talking about all this. Can the validator still stay by itself as a validator, or does he has to join to be in the staking agency?
Validators can stay, and if they do not do anything, they will remain individual validators. They are not forced to do anything.
Okay, and what is the APY that's on the validators that will stay versus the staking agencies or whatever? Is something else? Does it benefit the validator to stay by themselves?
There is no difference between API calculated for staking providers versus individual validators. It's computed by how much top up and how many nodes are you running, and that's the same. So it will change as the top up. There will be little less penalization for top up, and we will have like 20 to 40%. 24% base stake, 40% for top up.
Okay. Thank you very much.
The only, maybe just to explain what are the upside of running such a service. So basically allowing people to delegate to your own infrastructure. Basically you can capture more value, more stake on top of your node, even if you don't own that stake and work with that stake. And even if the overall APR is a bit, or API is a bit decreasing for your own node, but basically you're allowing more people inside to participate on the network and on top of your node or infrastructure to protocol consensus. And by doing so, you basically can also charge a certain amount of service fees, which again then aligns all the incentives for everybody. Even if it decreases a bit, then there are other ways to monetize the services provided by you.
Okay, so guys, we're running over time, especially for some of us. So I would take the rest of the questions offline. Benjamin, if you want to make a closing statement, please.
So what I would focus on, of course, is the fact that again a lot of progress has been done. The community is growing on all fronts, both the users and the validators and the conversations. We're preparing some things in the background, and some of them available that are very compelling and focused on bringing tremendous growth to the ecosystem. One of the early points that will come out very, very soon is the Mire Exchange. Mire Exchange will have a lot of staking capacity for liquidity pools and so forth. I'm only saying this intuitively. If you look at two of the, let's say, more interesting stories related to swaps or decentralized exchanges, whether it's Uniswap or PancakeSwap. Basically, PancakeSwap for Binance has created more adoption, more utility than the entire Ethereum ecosystem has right now, in terms of transactions, in terms of value, and so forth. Of course, this has been also reflected in the price of the cake token, because utility and adoption drive these elements. So all I'm saying is we're trying to bring this type of solutions that again realign interests, incentives, can bring further growth, can cause this supply shock in terms of staking incentives and so forth, and then this will in turn be reflected in the ecosystem with the Mire Exchange and some of the other elements, because of course DeFi 2.0 is a set of tools that will follow one after another, and that seek to bring a set of services for our community that you guys can use, can leverage, and in the meantime, of course, even more things are being prepared, and we'll probably share more of them during the next few days and weeks. So keep up the really great work. I would point out that the next call, maybe 1 or 2 weeks for now, should be specifically a call geared toward this kind of non-zero sum or positive sum value creation mechanism that are available for validators, and exploring with you guys what some of them are, how some of the other large validators are approaching the problems, how do they grow in a sense that it adds value to the ecosystem and also adds tremendous value to their clients. And you'd be surprised how many options, creative options there are. I've already seen some really valuable efforts in the community, and encourage each of you to do this, like the Elrond talks for valid blocks, some more blogs from some of you. All of this puts you in a position to have a much larger say, to build a reputation, to bring the community toward your services. And we very, very much appreciate this type of initiatives, and believe that with each new steps, you'll have even larger opportunities that you can bring. And during the workshop that we'll probably do in 1 week or 2, as we said, some of these opportunities, which may seem obvious to us sometimes, we'll start to cover them and get a lot of back and forth discussions. But I do believe that this will be a very, very productive conversation that we can follow up on. So thanks a lot for the feedback. Thanks for the efforts. Let's keep the focus on growth. And I'm sure that during the next period, we'll have the same conversation over and over again with how things started with $500 per node and how they exceed the $500,000 and then move toward 1 million, whatever, a lot more than that, which is just a kind of proxy for how fast the ecosystem grows, how rewarding this entire experience is, and then how we want to use some of these resources to build even more interesting games, ecosystem, reward systems, and so forth. So thanks a lot. Keep up the great work. And we'll take some more questions through Sever and so forth offline, and then we'll follow up with this kind of regular discussions. Keep it up, guys. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye.
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 Just
Have a good one.
question.
Have
So
a
we
good
will
one.
follow up with the recording of this
Bye,
meeting and also a written proposal for staking phase 3.5, which will be posted on the forum, where we invite you all to drop your comments. Thank you so much for joining, and see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.